I grew up in the 60s, and I was a teenager in the 70s. Now, like most kids then, we kept up with what was happening in popular music. In those days, we had to listen to the radio. There were no music videos and no streaming. And I know I'm making myself sound really old. What we're going to do here is take a look at a popular song from that era, that is the mid-70s. This is a song by Neil Sedaka. It's called Laughter in the Rain. It was composed and recorded by Neil Sedaka, and the lyrics are by a fellow by the name of Phil Cody, with whom Neil wrote many of his popular songs. This song hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in February of 1975, when I was in high school. Now, this was when Sedaka was enjoying a big comeback in his music career. He had a string of hit singles from the late 1950s to the early 1960s. I imagine you can look up some of these songs here on YouTube, like Oh Carol, Calendar Girl, Happy Birthday, Sweet 16. Breaking Up is Hard to Do, which incidentally he did a remake of during his rise back to popularity in the 70s. So as it happened to a lot of artists by the mid-60s, he wasn't as popular. But then in the mid-70s, he had a big comeback. And in 1975, he had 2 U.S. Billboard Hot 100 number 1 hits, one being this song, Laughter in the Rain, and another one called Bad Blood, which incidentally has backing vocals on it by Elton John. He also co-wrote the top song of 1976, Love Will Keep Us Together. Now, he has his own version of this song, but the famous version is that which was done by Captain and Tennille. And if you listen to the backing vocals on that recording, you can hear those singers singing Sedaka's Back. Now, this song is a great example of what a composer can do with complete knowledge of chords and how they work together. This song has a very memorable chorus, but the interesting thing about it is that it's in a different key than the verse. So let's take a look at the lead sheet for this song, and we'll talk about the melody, we'll talk about the chord progression, and that amazing and very effective key change or modulation that leads us into the chorus. I'll also show you some ways to play this song. So let's switch to the overhead camera and take a look at this song together. Okay, let's take a look at this lead sheet together. You'll notice that we are in the key of F, 1 flat, 4/4 time. Interesting thing about this melody, by the way. This melody is what you would call a pentatonic melody. In other words, it is based entirely in the verse here on the pentatonic scale. Now, you might remember what the pentatonic scale is. It's penta meaning 5 tones, 5 notes. An easy way to play the pentatonic scale is simply by playing the black keys. So there's our 5 notes. So we have a whole step, and then a minor third, and another whole step, and then another minor third as it keeps repeating. Now, you'll notice that this melody, here it is in the key of F. It can be played entirely on the black keys. So if you really wanted to play this song in the key of F sharp major, it may not be that hard. But for now, we're going to play it in the key of F. So here's this pentatonic melody. Beautiful melody, by the way. Very I can't talk and play at the same time. Very memorable. And then it repeats again. Okay, and then we have this big leap leading into the chorus. Very dramatic. Whenever a melody leaps up by an octave like that, you know you're getting ready to go somewhere very exciting. Now, I'm going to save the chorus for a little bit later because that's where Sedaka, the composer, throws in a big surprise. So let's take a look at the chords now. The first chord should be very familiar to those of you who know your basic chords. Now, look at this chord symbol here. This is perhaps something you haven't seen before. In the past, I have written a chord like G minor 7 as G little m 7. But here we have G/7. That's just another way of designating the same chord. So that would be G minor 7. Now we can get to G minor 7 easily from F major by playing it in inverted form. So this would be G minor 7 in first, second, third inversion. And then we can get very easily from there to C by playing C in first inversion and then back to F. Then that chord progression repeats. F, G minor 7, C, and F. And then we have another chord symbol perhaps you haven't seen before. D minor 7. So there's that slash again. So in this particular lead sheet, instead of using D little m7, we use D/7 to designate D minor 7. And then we have G7 suspended, which we can play this way, which resolves to G7. So notice we're not playing all these chords in root position. And by not playing them all in root position, that makes it easier to go from one chord to the next. So to get from D minor 7 to G7 suspended, all we have to do is move one finger. And then move one finger again to get to G7. And then we have C suspended. We could play it this way. Well, it's actually C7 suspended. Now, here's where we have the big surprise. Here we are on C7, and you'd think the chorus would resolve into something in the key of F again. But we end up having what Neil Sedaka called the drop-dead chord. All of a sudden, B flat minor 7. Where does that come from? Well, this is actually a borrowed chord. That's one way we can look at it. You see, in the key of F, we have these chords, as you know, F, G minor, A minor, B flat, C, D minor, E diminished, and then F. But in the key of F minor, the parallel minor, we have this chord, because we're using the notes of this scale. That's the F natural minor scale. And so we're building chords on that scale. There is the minor 4 chord from F minor. So we've borrowed this chord from F minor and put it here in the key of F major. But this also acts as the 2 chord in the key of A flat. So this could also be called the pivot chord of our modulation. So we could call that a common chord modulation or a borrowed chord modulation, however you want to look at it. Basically, by hitting this borrowed chord, we can now use this as the 2 chord in A flat, go to the E flat 9, and then we end up on this chord. Here's another symbol that perhaps you haven't seen yet. Normally I would have written this A flat and then little MAJ 7, A flat major 7. But you can also use this triangle as the symbol to designate a major 7th chord. So now we're going from B flat minor 7. If I play it this way in third inversion, B flat minor 7 in root position, first inversion, second inversion, third inversion. Then I can play E flat 9. I don't really have the root in there, but it's very heavily implied. And then we have A flat major 7, which can then go down to F minor 7. There's that slash again. And then here, B flat minor 7. We can either play E flat 9 and leave out the ninth, or play it like this again. A flat major 7, F minor 7. And so you can see we are clearly now modulated into the key of A flat major. A flat major 7, F minor 7. Here we have, now we have another chord. This chord definitely belongs in the key of A flat. This is the 4 chord as a major 7th chord. And then the bass goes down chromatically. And we have that C7 suspended chord, which resolves to C7. So this is the way we modulate back to the original key of F. Isn't that brilliant? I mean, it really has a dramatic impact when he hits that, what he called the drop-dead chord. Interesting, at this time, Neil Sedaka was closely tied in with Elton John. In fact, this song was released on Elton John's Rocket Records label. And this chord progression, to get from F to the money chord, as you might call it, it's the same chord that Elton John uses in Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. And then he goes back to the same, gets to that C7 and gets back to F. So an interesting parallel there between Laughter in the Rain and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. So let's figure out how we can play this. Now, we can play it simply by our usual method of playing chords in the left hand. And I've shown you how to play these chords in your left hand and the melody in the right. So we'll play a chord at the beginning of every measure. Notice at the C major there in measure 3, you could actually play a C7, and that would work as well. And here's that D7. And here's the big money chord. We can play it here. And then now we're back in the verse. And this song really doesn't have a bridge per se, but it really doesn't need one. So you've got the 2 verses, the chorus, and then there's a really beautiful saxophone solo. And then it comes back in on the Sharing Our Love Under Stormy Skies. And then we have the big drop-dead chord leading us back into the chorus. Now, we've been learning about arpeggios. And I'm going to show you how you can employ arpeggios in your left hand to create a very nice but very simple accompaniment for this song. So instead of playing a block chord, we might play something like this. And then so you might want to practice that just with your left hand. F major, G major 7, C, or C7 if you like, and then back to F, and then add the melody. It repeats. So as you build to the chorus, we can add, just play the kind of strum that D minor 7, and then the G suspended, G7 suspended. So once again, you might want to play the left hand alone there just to get used to that motion. And then your left hand can jump up here. So we're doing something different in the chorus now. We're playing an eighth note pattern, just outlining each chord. So before we were playing them as block chords, now we're outlining the chord. And then you can slow back down because we're heading back to the verse. So here's what the chorus sounds like. And then you'll have to end somehow because the record fades out. Anyway, I hope you have some fun playing this very popular song that hit #1 back in the mid-70s. Thank you for watching and for playing along. If you have any questions or comments, please be sure to leave those in the comment section. I make every effort to answer every question and to respond to every comment. If you'd like to support my work on Patreon, I will leave the link to my Patreon page at the top of the description. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please be sure to do so and click on the little bell so that you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. That really helps the channel a lot. And my sincere thanks to all of you who have subscribed, and also a special thanks to my patrons. So thank you again, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next one.